On Saturday, July 12th, the Family Worship Center had a public viewing, providing one last opportunity for individuals to pay their respects in person. Approximately 2,000 people stopped by between 10 a.m. and 3 o'clock p.m., bringing heartache, photographs, and blossoms. There was no fancy affair, just genuine, passionate love. There will be 2 services on Sunday, July 13th, the first at 10 a.m. and the second at 6 p.m. The church hosted a healing service in the morning, followed by a commemorative celebration of life. Anyone, anywhere in the globe could tune in because it was all broadcast live on Sun Life Broadcasting Network platforms. Donnie, who is Jimmy's son, took charge of the ceremony. When he said, his voice quivered, "We thank God for every tear Dad ever caused, because every tear brought us closer to His grace." Frances Swaggart was standing there, next to the coffin. Her words were barely audible yet profound. She said that Jimmy had faith in miracles. Even at the most peaceful moments of loss, there were nods, tears, hand-holding, and shared beliefs. This wasn't a man who vanished as soon as trouble started. The Jimmy Swaggart television show catapulted Jimmy to stardom in the 70s and 80s. He had already airing on almost 2 million U.S. households across more than 3,000 television stations. Because of his stadium-sized services, his income skyrocketed. Years ago, it was more than $80 million. Problems began in 1988, though, when he made the national television confession, "I have sinned against you, my Lord," following an uproar. Though many withdrew, the people who matter most are the ones who remained. Another controversy surfaced in 1991. A television station guided him. Contributions fell. And you know what? His sermons continued unabated. Because of that, today's goodbye was really impactful. The kind of guy who persisted when all hope seemed lost. A white tent covered the humble burial spot in the cemetery of the Family Worship Center, which consisted of a wooden coffin, a choir, a couple of speakers, and relative silence. No massive screens, no pump. Worship. Never before have I felt such homesickness as I did when the choir led him like a river. He touched me. The music that Jimmy became famous for. Those were the times when Sullen became holy. Despite the lack of volume, the crowd's combined grief and faith shone through in their quiet and tears spoke a great deal. The earlier moment, when Donnie's voice quivered, sent shivers down my spine. In light of the fact that grace isn't cheap, we should be grateful for every tear, ours, theirs, and everyone else's. You don't earn it, you receive it. When we are sad, the Lord is with us, declares Psalm 34 verse 18. That genuine, unfiltered compassion was with us today. For the last time, Frances stood by her husband's side and emphasized the promise presented in 2 Timothy 4 verse 7. The good fight has been fought by me. The race is over for me. The one that was faith. While Jimmy may have left this stage with some bruises, he did so with strength, faithfulness, poise, and purpose. Numerous viewers tuned in online. There were thousands more who shared their stories on the ministry's legacy page and various social media platforms. Reports of people hearing him pray on their first gospel radio station circulated online. Music from revivals. He taught healing by faith. Louisiana wasn't the only state affected. Notable clergymen, like gospel great preacher Jentison Franklin, spoke about his impact and the significance of today's event via live stream. Rather than merely farewell, but also a handing off of responsibility. Though sadness persisted, optimism and stability were more present. Standing with testimony, songs, and lyrics that expressed a truth bigger than death were members of the Steve Line family, the choir, and the followers. Christ rescues. God is merciful. Even redemption falls into this category. It is a guarantee. Because of this, many people still maintain that Jimmy's funeral wasn't the final chapter. Planting seeds on earth was like shouting a spiritual hello to heaven. Thus, the songs continue to carry the man's message even after he has passed away. Preachings, the individuals whose lives he impacted. At funerals, the emphasis is usually on the deceased. Indeed, that is entirely accurate. Still, something greater was brought to our attention during today's service. The power of one person's life and one family to alter the course of history. It wasn't just Jimmy strolling along. Regardless of the difficulty, Frances, his wife, was there for him. Donnie, his son, continued the ministry when circumstances were difficult. Thanks to their unwavering support, a broken ministry was able to recover and become a beacon of hope once more. Jimmy wasn't the only character in their story. It told the story of a family that remained united in the face of societal upheaval. Still, there was a void, even amid the genuine feelings. Hope, mercy, and pardon were the same themes throughout the ceremony. Plus, while the words themselves are fine, extra anecdotes would have made it more engaging. Consider the possibility of hearing about a little boy whose family was able to put food on the table thanks to a church outreach. For example, a person whose salvation was sealed in an altar call, or a preacher whose ministry took flight after being moved by Jimmy's example. Rather than merely repeating slogans, stories like these bring people together on a more profound level. Some touching and heartfelt tributes were shared with us by the family. However, this ignores the testimonies of those whose lives Jimmy touched through his ministry. When no one else would have given my son a second chance, Jimmy did it for him, one mother told the newspaper. The program for today did not include such testimony, but it is the type of compelling fact that warrants attention. It demonstrates the practical effect better than a pre-recorded sermon. Of all the tributes from Nigeria, one stood out. On Facebook, Power World Ministries International Pastor Yukiri hailed Jimmy's resignation as a watershed event for the global church. His exact words were, "A general has gone home." Gospel preacher Jimmy? Not at all. In remembrance of a man whose impact on this world will last forever, I joined the church community around the world today. Jimmy Swaggart, an evangelist. His ministry had a profound effect on my life, particularly through the moving music he composed, even though we never met in person. Not only was his voice melodic, but it was anointed. His music moved me, prompted me to pray more, and kindled a passion within me. I felt honored to be one of many who benefited from distant revelation, encouragement, and strength while watching him on television. Distance, in fact, did not constrain the scope of his vocation. Although he is now at peace, his legacy will continue to reverberate across many lives, including mine. For the Lord, the death of his saints is very precious. Text from Psalm 116 verse 15. To evangelist Jimmy Swaggart, I am grateful for making every effort. May you finally find peace. Despite never having seen Jimmy Swaggart in person, Pastor Yukiri was profoundly affected by his message and music, as expressed in his homage. Not only was his voice melodic, but it was anointed. I felt uplifted by his music, brought me closer to God in prayer, and stoked my spiritual fires. He ended by expressing his gratitude for the opportunity to see him on television and get inspiration, guidance, and revelation even from a distance. The scope of his calling was unbounded by physical distance, I tell you. He may be sleeping now, but his music will never die, and his many lives, including mine, are reverberated by legacy. For the Lord, the death of his saints is very precious. Text from Psalm 116 verse 15. The homage shed light on Jimmy and the impact of his message on a worldwide scale. Yet another formidable. Also hailing from Nigeria, Bishop David Abai offered tribute. To celebrate Jimmy's influence on his own ministry and life, he shared a video clip. "Rather than be rich and forsake Christ, I would prefer to die poor." Roughly 2 weeks ago, a pastor with a fantastic reputation in evangelism as a child, Jimmy Swaggart, was a cousin of mine. If I recall correctly, the world-renowned musician Elvis Presley learned his instrument from a church musician. Be wary of those who promise you the moon, money you can earn in a month, while blasphemously claiming that you're suffering for Christ. Don't be surprised if you start taking drugs to cope. They tell you not to mention Jesus too much at first, but to sing in a more subdued tone as you progress. I beg all of our music ministers to make their music word and spirit-filled so they can be shocked when they hear another spirit-filled song. Eventually, the mom of his cousin escorted Jimmy Swaggart to the closet, where he was shown a variety of stylish gowns. Joining your relative for only one show will get you it. His short life was cut short in the year 90. His world's influence is easily forgotten. Still, he kept the abilities, especially when he played the piano. Very few players can match his level of skill. Am I misunderstanding you? This planet is devoid of anything. I say it again, nothing exists in this global community. What material is it? A vehicle? Do you mean homes? Who do you ever saw laid to rest with a casket after he passes away? Bishop Avius discusses Jimmy's influence on his own calling and the early years of his courageous faith in that video clip. Inspired a generation of young pastors all over Africa. Something unique was brought to the table by that personal film. It established an instant connection that transcends superficial news and speaks directly to the soul. After hearing all of those memorials, the funeral felt like more than just a single church service. Jimmy Swaggart's ministry extended beyond the local area, as this served as a reminder. It was on a global scale as well. Truly, it was a worldwide phenomenon. Worship and preaching weren't the only things covered. The focus was on how families, pastors, and communities might undergo transformation. Grace, the message went, can triumph despite scandal, failure, and doubt, so long as believers continue to fight the good fight and remain fast to their faith. More stories like these can be shared as the funeral ceremony progresses, since actual lives were touched. A few in silence, a few to the general public. Even more profound than the formal eulogies is the feeling that one gets from listening to such tales. An enduring legacy is felt. Do not stop getting together. Instead, be encouraging to one another, especially as you see the day getting closer. Job 10 verse 25. Pastor E. Bishop of, and that father, son, and single mother continue to meet us in the moments that count most, even if Jimmy is gone. That is an accomplishment worthy of commemoration.